Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Two Daves and a Duck. Coffee in hand, gentlemen on the screen. I'd like to introduce everyone to Gabriele Marinello today from,
Thanks so much.
I'm going to call it Qeios, but it's Qeios, which I'm going to ask you to actually explain because
it's right.
Yeah, good. So again, Colin Keogh, David Pollard, myself, Dave Graham, and Gabrielle. So let's start with a little bit of introductions. Gabrielle, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're on the show to begin with.
Of course. Thanks so much for inviting me. First of all, I'm just a random guy that dropped out of medical school, nothing more than that, really. And I started my journey with Qeios, so the pronunciation was perfect, believe me. I think 3 years and a half, 4 years ago, I was in London for a traineeship in a hospital at that time, at Guy's Hospital. I'm not sure if you know that. While there, I was doing some research with a professor of mine down in Italy, Alberto Bedogni, on a pathology called bisphosphonate-related osteonecrosis of the jaw, which is a bad pathology of the jaw face. And while doing this research, I realized that there were so many different definitions of this pathology, so many, like 30, 40 different definitions of this pathology. I mean, the same physical entity was described differently by so many different research teams, okay, around the globe. So this professor of mine and this team defined that pathology in Europe. What does this mean? It means that in Europe, the gold standard for this pathology, more or less, is the definition provided by Alberto Bedogni and colleagues, okay? So imagine now this situation. This was the problem that prompted to me at that time. It was really huge. I was astonished by that, really. Imagine this situation, which is a very, very real one. Imagine that you have two research teams that want to find an answer to this question: what's the best treatment for the pathology? I mean, it's the most common question in medical research, right? So what's the best treatment for the pathology? Imagine that you have a European research team and an a US research team, okay? The European research team will take most probably the definition by Alberto Bedogni and colleagues. The US research team will take most likely the definition provided by the American Association of Maxillofacial Surgery, which is a completely different one, completely different. Really, you can get many more diagnoses with one definition rather than the other, you see. So it's really different. You start treating a person depending on the definition that you use for the pathology. So the problem is huge if you think about it.
Yeah.
And I thought at that time that the problem was actually, was actually just relegated to that particular field, you know. But instead, I was completely wrong. The problem is completely ubiquitous. If you just scrape any research paper and you look for the definitions that are used in a paper, you immediately see that there are tons of different variants, tons of different definitions, you see, for any of them. So just one last examples for all. If you take the definition of quality of life, for example, which is used anywhere in biomedical research, anywhere, really. There are more than 1,500 different definitions that are being used right now in medical research, which is really incredible. And depending, you can go with a logical conclusion. Depending on what definition you take, you get a completely different study results. Right, completely different. You can get 90% success rate rather than a 30% success rate, just because the definition of quality of life is a different one. You see, if I do not include in my definition of quality of life, for example, and I'm a maxillofacial surgeon, for example, okay, if I do not include the parameter aesthetics in that definition, okay. I can get 90% success rate rather than 30%, for example, if I make a mess in the face, right? So the problem with the inconsistency with scholarly definitions is what it is the generator behind Qeios. Okay, we wanted to solve at the very beginning that particular problem. So I'm not sure if I made myself clear so far. So if you have any questions, please make them. But what we wanted to do is trying to find a possible solution to this problem, and we thought that we had a very promising one in our hands, and this goes this way. We decided to ask the entire scientific community to compose not just the final product of their works, which are just the common scientific papers, but also all the building blocks, all the definitions that they need to compose all these articles, right? So we wanted to ask them to create a sort of encyclopedia, sort of what we called it, a sort of dictionary for researchers, for scholars, where any research team, any scholar could propose their own definitions, okay? So that the very final product will looks like actually. I'm not sure if you know it, the Urban Dictionary,
Oh,
right? Yeah. Okay, beautiful. So imagine
use it quite a bit.
I see. Great, a great resource. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, the final product, imagine really something like the Urban Dictionary, okay, organized that way. So you have a term like, again, quality of life, for example, and then for the first time in history, really for the first time in history, you have all the definitions of quality of life attached, grouped, clustered together under the cap, okay? And now that you have all these building blocks organized this way, you can ask the entire community to make a peer review, to do a peer review, sorry, of these building blocks, okay? So the final result is not different from what we are already doing and using in the commercial world since the latest 90s, you see. I mean, we are just applying the power of a community, of an entire community, in this case, the entire academic community, okay, to a platform, to an academic platform. So that is not different from Airbnb, for example. If you want to make a very easy example, okay, you have all these, or Amazon, you have all these items on Amazon, and imagine to remove all the comments and reviews and stuff. It's just a mess, right? Yeah. It loses completely its functions, right? So imagine we have this definition controlled, peer-reviewed by scholars, so that for the first time in history, again, we are able to provide an answer to this question: what are the best building blocks that I can use for my piece of paper? And imagine, and now try to see the side effect of all this, which is huge, which is very powerful. The side effect is this, which is a positive one in this case, is this. Just because anyone can now recognize the best building blocks, the best definitions, you might expect that anyone will use the top ones for their papers, so that automatically research will be composed more homogeneously. Mm-hmm. And the work, the really the terrible work of the systematic reviewer, the one who has to produce a meta-analysis or whatever you want to call it, okay, is much easier. Why? Because now the definition, I don't have to exclude 90% of the articles. Like it's common. The most common case is that you exclude 90% of the articles just because they are not comparable, they are not consistent in terms of definitions. You see, now this process will become more automatic, you know, more and more. It's just I go out there, the academic community is prompting me with the best ingredients, okay, so I will use them for my paper, and the US team will use them for their paper, okay. So basically we started that way, and then we recognized that this could be coupled with a publishing system, more or less, okay, most effectively, rather than using these definitions like going back to the citations problems and so on. We wanted researchers to use not just cite, but to use these definitions, not different from a Wikipedia article, a Wikipedia page with all these blue links in it. Okay, we wanted to see a research paper composed that way, with all these blue links, and behind these blue links were just the definitions used by that particular research team for that paper. Okay, so there is very easily, there is a compose section where you create your paper on the platform. While you compose your paper, you can just do a copy paste from your Microsoft Word into the platform. It's very
helpful.
Exactly.
I will do that later on today on one of my papers.
Nice. Oh, beautiful. Great. So you can just take your paper if it's ready, or you can start composing. You're composing your paper from scratches, and you can compose it with all these definitions suggested by the community. Okay, and then without any delay, you immediately post this preprint. Okay, we started with the preprint. You know better than me all the pains and stuff of the academic evaluation process and all that a PhD needs to do the career step and so on, the impact factor, the H index, and so on. You already do, and I think the audience already do that pretty well, right? So basically, we've decided to start with the preprint just because we see in the preprint the future of the publishing system. We see in the preprint, coupled with a post-publication peer review, an open peer review attached to a preprint, the future of scholarly communications, scholarly communication, you see. So for now, just because researchers need an impact factor, need an H index, and so on, we've decided to add this label. It's just a label, preprint, that keeps the option for the PhD to submit to any journal they like. Okay, so basically,
sounds amazing. It sounds amazing. Like, and it's a common in, I think, a huge amount of fields. So you focused on the medical field. I had previous problems in history with exactly that.
Oh, beautiful.
So a concept of life cycle assessment. So particularly in sustainability or energy use, you trying to measure the life cycle of a specific product. It's so hard to gauge the outcome of a paper or a research study, because everyone defines their own meaning of what they mean by life cycle assessment. They start counting here, and then they stop counting here, but other people move these bands. So it's nearly impossible to try and compare what these set standards are. And then similarly now, David and myself were teaching yesterday, when it comes to trying to define more intangible definitions, what is innovation, what is disruptive innovation, there's so many definitions. So there's a huge amount of use in this for every field, and then added to things that are burgeoning in a technology sense, like preprints make so much sense. Just look at COVID and the amount of medical output and medical data that came under preprint because it needed to exist in the world first. So I love that. It sounds like a great idea. I can't wait.
Thanks so much.
I'm going through the process. No, go ahead, Gabriele. I'll tell you in a second. I'm going through the process myself, but it's with definitions like creativity and elements like that, which of course, when you look back in all of the articles and the papers and everything, nearly every single one has a slightly different version. Some will include like problem solving into it. Some will include the place, the product, the process, whatever it might be. And trying to narrow that down has been a huge challenge. So I've nearly tried to step away from it as much as possible and really get down into it. So something like that, I think, is going to be great. So I'm really curious about giving that a shot myself.
I have that with data. Like, I focus on data. So my day job, I do a lot in the tech field. lot in marketing and stuff. So disambiguating anything becomes a chore because, you know, you're trying to get there first. You're trying to be the Italians to the Americans in this case, right? They're Europeans to the Americans in terms of the oral maxillofacial kind of definitions and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And that becomes intriguing, right? But yeah, using something as generic as data. Well, I have this theory, I have this idea, this extrapolation thing. Like, oh God, I don't know what I'm going to talk about at the end of the day. So it becomes so you're truly bringing order to chaos. I mean, that's
exactly. Now you're starting to get the meaning of the name, right? Exactly. That's
great name.
Yeah, exactly.
I may be slow, but I get there eventually. That's going to be my theme for my entire PhD.
Exactly. And if you think about what you guys just said, consider this: there is no point of reference beyond Wikipedia, but it's real. It's real beyond Wikipedia, in terms of I mean, you know, more narrow definitions and stuff. There is no second point of reference in the web when you Google something. Okay, even when you are just a student at university or at high school. Really, there is no point of reference beyond Wikipedia. You just keep opening tabs on Chrome or Safari or whatever, and you start creating yourself an idea of what atrial fibrillation is, or what mammal cancer is, and so on and so on. Right? You start creating yourself an idea of that. Okay. We want to fill this gap of information. Okay. Where anyone can contribute with their opinion, with their comments, with their reviews on these pieces of knowledge, okay? So that we can start, put some order in this chaos, you see?
That's a very, very good point. Like, it's an excellent point you mentioned as well. You go to any university, you study in any course in an academic institution, everyone will tell you Wikipedia is not a source. Exactly. It is not a citation, but every single person starts with Wikipedia, regardless of whether you reference it or not.
And ends with it.
Exactly.
And ends with it, exactly. And there's no intermediary gap. Exactly. And what you've just explained is mimicked, and in a lot of cases it's a waste of time, excluding the personal learning you will get as a researcher, or even just an interested party. It's so demotivating when you've spent 9 months compiling this assessment of a specific field. And then you find a paper at the end of that process that does exactly what you've done better than you did after 9 months of kind of wasted effort. So yeah, your kind of intermediary bit in the middle is super needed and valuable. Like,
Thanks so much.
You're connecting the kind of open freedom of Wikipedia to the standard rigor of academia.
Oh, exactly.
Letting it kind of meld in between the two.
Yeah. Even going more practical in this sense, any definition on Qeios gets a DOI, okay, digital object identifier. So you can cite, if you're not using definition to create a preprint on the platform, directly on the platform, you can still cite definitions in your paper that you want to submit to a Wiley journal or whatever you like. Okay, so still you get credit for these definitions. There is not just a DOI, there is also altmetric tracking. So any mentions for this definition gets recorded, and so on and so on. So you get the same, we want to see definition in the mid-long run to have the same level of dignity that a research paper has, okay? And these we're doing as well for peer reviews. So these important work, when you, as a reviewer, are posting a peer review to a preprint on Qeios, you're getting a DOI for your peer review. You're getting altmetric tracking for your peer review. So it's not wasted. It's not wasted work. Right now, the traditional academic publishers are wasting that precious work. They're trashing it straight away. Okay. Now some journals are starting with the open peer review process. Okay, so they are opening up a little bit what has happened behind the scenes, behind the doors for years, for centuries, really. Okay, they are opening up a little bit, but we are making a step further. We are giving peer reviews the same level of dignity that articles have. So they get a DOI. You can cite a peer review. You're writing a piece of paper, okay, and you want to cite the peer review. You can do that via the DOI. The DOI is provided by Crossref, so everything is recorded for forever. You know, so all these objects, so definitions, preprints, and peer reviews are saved in the web, in the cloud forever. Okay, and they can be cited forever.
You may have actually created something brand new in that case as well, a new field of research right there, because my brain just lit up and said, if I can reference and cite peer reviews on your platform, it means I can assess traditional understanding of modern innovation or modern networks or modern science, and identify disconnects between the traditional standards and assumptions and new iterative or new kind of turbulent outcomes in that field. So being able to cite peer reviews can indicate super relevant knowledge about how a field or area used to work or traditionally works, and how it is now adapted to these new disruptive external elements. So like I'm not aware of anyone that's ever succeeded in doing that ever before. So I can't wait to get in and start citing peer reviews.
You just gave Colin another job. Great.
Great.
In terms of disrupting an industry or coming in and kind of changing a very traditional sense, I'm kind of curious about it from your side in terms of actually building up trust yourself in the platform with people within the space, and what it was like building it out yourself from that perspective. I'm kind of curious about the story behind it. Like, were there any challenges that came up that you weren't anticipating? And in terms of getting people to go, you know what, this is a platform that I'm happy to go with in like we're saying, a very traditional and maybe not fast moving space. What has it been like for you in terms of that journey?
Great question. It's been hard so far, as you can imagine, very hard. But we've been lucky enough to meet forward-looking people along the way. One of them is for example, the editor-in-chief of a journal, of the Journal Addiction, Robert West, and their colleagues that immediately see the value in all this. I mean, we are filling the gaps in the entire research life cycle, from the idea conception to the publication, to the posting of a preprint now, but in the mid-long run, we want to see the platform completely replacing the system, okay? So basically, yeah, we've been very lucky in the journey, okay? To find early support from really forward-looking people that saw the value in this process of using definitions, of creating consensus among definitions and using them straight away in science. So they just jumped on board, and they decided to use the platform for their preprint as a venue of choice for their preprints, and they are helping us with their feedbacks, with really, we are building this platform not alone, we're building all together with our users, okay? So so that we can create the best experience for researchers to come and use all these features, from definitions to preprints to peer review and so on. So yes, I mean, I really believe that all the hardships that we have overcome, them just by luck, okay? By meeting great people really along the way, because if you are alone in all this, is really tough, if not impossible, okay? So we've been very, very lucky in this. Really.
It sounds like you've met your own luck with that. It sounds like you've met it yourself. That you've built that look out by pushing that idea forward. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because again, I think even there's going to be a group of people listening to this from the entrepreneurial side of the house, you know, with curiosity into new platforms like this. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
thanks
and
so much.
I think what I get the feeling from the conversation is you've done your platform, and the work you've done is going to do a huge amount to increase the democratization of science again. As in, I supervise an awful lot of undergrad and postgraduate students, and an awful lot of them create amazing work and do lots of very, very useful work that belongs out in the world. But the process of submitting it to a journal is sometimes just beyond the stage they're at. It's too difficult, it's too complicated. It doesn't have that traditional form and rigor. It doesn't remove the quality of the research in any shape or form, but it has nowhere to go. Most of the students I've worked with have 5 or 6, the information for 5 or 6 maybe really good papers, but there's nowhere to put them. Your platform then allows them to kind of add their preprints, add their definitions, and get out there early. So you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You've nearly pulled the kind of horizon and requirements from the higher ends of academia and pulled it back down again. So the barriers are much, much lower. And I think particularly now, I know I've mentioned it before, I'll mention it again because we were heavily involved. COVID did so much for preprints and medicine.
So
to
much.
me, preprints are kind of go be everything. It's there. Sometimes you need to share with other people.
Exactly.
Get feedback from people you don't know.
True. Exactly. There's the next level of peer review. You see, not just 3 peers, but tons of peers. Definitely.
Yeah, and everyone has had those problems with traditional peer review. Like reviewer number 2 is notorious for a reason. You know, I've got feedback on peer reviews that I can't even connect to the work I've submitted. It sounds like it's come from someone else, or everyone has got peer review feedback that it attacks their industry, so they've been very negative on your work because it's disruptive. And the pace of change and iteration is so fast now, it's going to become more and more common. So you've reduced the kind of impact of that by spreading your review burden and then your personality burden among others. So yeah, it's excellent. I can't wait to kind of get up. I think you're going to have a flood of technology, innovation, and business related content just from the 3 of us.
We should just say that this is not a sponsored podcast.
Oh, this is very much not. Gabriele knows. I went after social media first and said, "Hey, this would be great." So we went to a turn. I have proof.
We just love it.
On that very point, they've brought it up, even social media as well. The main thing I noticed on your website is the term SEO friendly. And like that is super important going forward.
I just wanted to make to say something about that. As I told you before, guys, there are many people that really fell in love with the definition part of the platform, but there are another cluster of people that are using the preprint on Qeios, the preprint feature on Qeios, just because we are offering preprints in a HTML format and not just a PDF format. Okay, so when you have an HTML, is not just much more readable, and you don't need on Qeios, for example, rather than in comparison to, for example, BioArchive, medRxiv, and those platforms, you don't have to download any PDF. You have the entire text, the body of the text in front of you, even if you're scrolling from mobile. You see, and so HTML is not just more readable by people, but it really is more readable by people, because opening up a PDF, sorry, on a phone screen is not that easy, right? It's very it's stressful, really. You just zoom in, zoom out, and yeah, you keep going. Exactly. So HTML is not just more readable by humans, but also from machines. So by machines, by bots. So and we are seeing that. I mean, the level of views of altmetric scores that you see on Qeios are a little bit higher than I mean, similar. I mean, we have not data enough to say that, but it's just an intuition for now. Similar papers published by the same research team, okay, on different platforms, get a little bit, I mean, more views on Qeios with comparison to these platforms, like, again, the archives and so on. Just because it's an HTML, guys. I mean, altmetric research is being read not just by scientists nowadays, not just by scientists. You get mentions by people interested, by lay people interested in research, okay, that are just sharing on Twitter, on Facebook, on whatever you like, you see. So we want to see, in this sense, the platform as easy to use, to read and stuff as medium.com is, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, without the need for a subscription, though. I mean, you have a 5, I think on medium.com you have a 5 article free plan, and then you have to start paying, right? So there is no such a barrier on Qeios. Everything is open access. So I mean, we are expanding a little bit our audience to the general public, just because it is more easy to read on Qeios than a PDF, than an archive, a bioarchive, that, you know, with all these, with these old fashioned, I mean, Windows 95 style of layout, you see, really. So it's much more pleasant to read.
Even from an accessibility perspective, you know, from an accessibility perspective for screen readers and things like that, potentially there's an option there for people to get access to that, which they mightn't have had before, or would have struggled to do with certain formats. So that would be an interesting piece of insight into it, to see if you've created this more accessible platform for people who might need screen readers or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, Colin, you talked about it a little bit earlier, that entire concept of democratizing data, democratizing access to this. I mean,
exactly.
To David's point, you're actually opening up, you know, higher education, if you will, or academia in general, to a population that has been woefully underserved or prevented from, you know, enjoying their intelligence. I mean, the massive amount of experience and intelligence and capabilities that they have, you know, and, you know, kind of level setting with this. I mean, I come from a business mindset, you know, and how we use this. We use archive all the time. Preprints, we go in there, we scrape it. We try to understand what are academics doing within our particular technology field, right? We use it almost entirely. And I do a lot within the AI field, for example. So of course we're going to go in there. We're going to want to see what people are researching and then trying to understand. But in the same sense, making something that's accessible to, and you called it out, Gabriele, it's like that lay person who doesn't want to deal with, I mean, archive is painful. I mean, it's really, the structure of it's painful, like trying to go through and find the things that you want. So being able to kind of level that out, and kind of turn it into the Urban Dictionary, which is awesome. But that almost that Wikipedia, Google-esque type approach, you know, gives that accessibility and capability.
Exactly.
No, it's very admirable. I love the platform, what I've been able to poke around, and haven't had to generate any papers yet, but it will certainly be something. Yeah, I said yet. I got stuff up here.
We have loads of papers to publish over the next couple of weeks and months, so they'll all be going on Qeios.
Great. That's an option. Yeah.
Well, in the time that we have left here, I mean, I just want to give you another opportunity to kind of talk about the value of Qeios, right? You've gone through the history, why you started it, why it's there, and so, and kind of as a closing thought, you know, what are your future ambitions? You've alluded to a little bit of it, but what are some of your future ambitions for Qeios as you look at what you can do and how you can impact the academic community?
Thanks so much for the question.
Give us a few of your thoughts, and we'll close it off after that.
Yes, again, we see in the preprint the possibility, and being the COVID-19, I think that has done, I mean, with all the deaths and stuff, has done some positive for science, okay? Some positive stuff for science. We see in the preprint coupled with an open post-publication peer review system, the future of scholarly communication. So first publish and then peer review, okay? Just imagine you have like on with items on Amazon and stuff, you have 0 rating, you have awaiting peer review warnings. So there is no chance that one can can be mistaken by the UI in a sense that, okay, is this peer reviewed? Is this not? Will you buy? I'm making this question openly. Like, will you buy an item with 0 reviews on Amazon? Okay, when the competitor has tons of reviews, I'm not sure. Right? So it's not different here. Where we want to go in the long run, mid-long run, is to replace being amongst them. There are other platforms that are in this competition, but we want to be amongst the ones that replace the entire scholarly communication system. Imagine that now, for example, on Qeios, there are some articles that got more than 10 peer reviews. Okay, so 3 times more the level of peer review that a journal, I mean formal peer review. Consider that peer reviews on Qeios can be written, can be posted just by researchers. It's not like a comment sections in the archives where anyone can comment and so on. You must be a researcher to post a definition. So you have you need an ORCID ID, you need an institutional email address, you need to pass some barriers, you see, and then you can post your peer review. And peer reviews on Qeios are formal peer reviews, are real peer reviews. Okay, so we have seen papers on the platform that experience a level of peer review that is 3 times more already, 3 times more than the common traditional system. Okay, so the same papers that have then submitted to journals, okay, I've experienced, for example, a level of views and alt-metric tracking which was just a tiny fraction of what the paper has experienced on Qeios. Just because you see you have 10 peer reviews, you can stay safe. And peer reviewers are peers, are from other fields. They have more or less spotted all the errors that 3 peers could spot in the peer review system of a journal. So you can stay safe that piece of paper is more peer reviewed and more possible, more possible really by news, by media and stuff. So at some point, we want to get to some point where we just need to remove this label preprint and show the public that this system is already there. I mean, the difference from this system that we envision for the future and the system that we have now is just one label, you see, just one label, preprint, nothing more than that. We want to get to a point where we have a customer base, a user base, so big, so that like the product so much that we can make a statement at some point. Okay, guys, from now on, we can remove this label preprint and tell your research funder that they can start valuing, they can start assessing your research with all the parameters that we provide, with the ratings, with the peer reviews and stuff. Okay, so just tell them if they cannot see themselves, right? So yeah, it's gonna be just a matter for us. If you ask right now, it's gonna be just a matter of removing this little label. Okay, the system is already there.
Excellent.
Wait.
Yeah, I can't either. I want to use this now. I have no. Yeah, I mean, we'll get there, I'm sure. All right, Gabriele Marinello from Qeios. Awesome to have you on today. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much,
explaining the platform.
Really.
And
thank you so much. It's been great. Really.
Absolutely look forward to seeing how you democratize academic access. I mean, that's
thank you so
really
much.
what it is. So
thank you
until
so
next
much.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.